This is the map of the world, and in white you can see Antarctica in the south of the globe. What you may not see from the map is how cold the place is. Another thing you may not realize from the map is the number of discoveries going on in this cold region. Despite the harshness of the environment, scientists are hard at work in the Antarctica, and many of the things they have discovered are terrifying. In this video, we bring you the most terrifying new discoveries under Antarctica. To appreciate the scientific discoveries in this video, it's important to know some facts about Antarctica. The continent of Antarctica makes up the majority of the Antarctic region, and it's the fifth largest continent in terms of landmass. This means the Antarctica can swallow both Oceania and Europe, and while we call Antarctica a continent, it does not have a single country. But 7 countries try to claim different parts of the ice-cold continent. They are New Zealand, Australia, Norway, France, the UK, Chile, and Argentina. As you might have known, Antarctica is the home of ice. It is dominated by the Antarctic ice sheet, the largest single piece of ice on the planet. Interestingly, the ice grows significantly in surface area from about 3 million square kilometers, or 1.2 million square miles, to 19 million square kilometers, or 7.3 million square miles by winter. What if there was no ice in Antarctica? What will the continent look like? You would have a giant peninsula and archipelago of mountainous islands, known as Lesser Antarctica, and a single large landmass about the size of Australia, known as Greater Antarctica. Greater Antarctica, or East Antarctica, contains older igneous and metamorphic rocks, while Lesser Antarctica, or West Antarctica, includes younger volcanic and sedimentary rock. Lesser Antarctica is part of the Ring of Fire, which refers to a tectonically active area around the Pacific Ocean. Tectonic activity is what leads to earthquakes and volcanoes. In fact, Mount Erebus, found on Antarctica's Ross Island, is the southernmost active volcano on Earth. But of course, there is ice in Antarctica, making it an extremely cold and dry climate. If you spend winter on the continent coast, you will have to bear temperatures ranging from -10 degrees Celsius to -30 degrees Celsius. In the summer, you can get around 0 degrees Celsius, but that can increase to 9 degrees Celsius. However, the further into Antarctica you go, the colder it gets. In the mountainous interior regions, temperatures can drop below -60 degrees Celsius in winter and -20 degrees in summer. The coldest temperature ever recorded on Earth was -89.2 degrees Celsius by Russia's Vostok research station. You can't breathe that cold air without permanently damaging your lungs. And while Antarctica is known for being a place of ice, it is actually a desert too. The continent gets only 50 to 100 millimeters of water every year. The water is not even rain, it's just snow. One other fact that you should know about Antarctica is that no matter where you live on it, it affects you. The Antarctic region has an important role in global climate processes. It is an integral part of the Earth's heat balance. The heat balance, also called the energy balance, is the relationship between the amount of solar heat absorbed by Earth's atmosphere and the amount of heat reflected back into space. Antarctica plays another important role in your well-being. Since it contains lots of ice, which is more reflective than land or water, Antarctica reflects a large amount of solar radiation away from the Earth's surface. What this implies is that the loss of ice in the continent spells disaster for the planet. Scientists say as the ice surface area decreases, the planet absorbs more solar radiation, causing an unequal heat balance linked to global warming, the current period of climate change. However, this is where it gets interesting. NASA scientists have discovered that climate change has actually caused more ice to form in Antarctica. The explanation is new climate patterns caused by climate change. These patterns create a strong wind pattern called the polar vortex.
It's beautiful, even stunning, but it's also downright dangerous.
The effect of the polar vortex winds is they lower temperatures in the Antarctic. This has been building in intensity in recent decades, as much as 15% since 1980. The catch, however, is that not all parts of Antarctica are experiencing this effect, and some parts are actually experiencing ice melt. On any given day, you will find between 1,000 and 5,000 people in Antarctica. These are not natives because there are no tribes indigenous to Antarctica, but research scientists and other workers attached to different stations operating in the region. We will now dive fully into some of the frightening discoveries that they have made. The most recent and exciting is the discovery of a hidden world deep under the Antarctic ice. The scientists that found the underworld reported goosebumps because they simply weren't expecting to discover it. This ecosystem was flourishing more than 1,600 feet below the surface of the icy continent. The scientists found the secret subterranean habitat tucked away beneath the Larsen Ice Shelf. The Larsen Ice Shelf is a humongous floating sheet of ice attached to the eastern coast of the Antarctic Peninsula that produced the world's largest iceberg last year. Satellite photos showed an unusual groove in the ice shelf close to where it met with the land, and researchers identified the peculiar feature as a subsurface river. The crew then drilled through about 1,640 feet or 500 meters below the ice's surface. They were able to complete the drilling using a powerful hot water hose, which allowed them to reach the underground chamber where the hidden world was located. When the researchers sent a camera down through the icy tunnel and into the cavern, hundreds of tiny, blurry flecks in the water obscured the video feed. The scientists felt there was a problem with their equipment, but when they refocused the camera, they realized that the lens were being swarmed by tiny crustaceans known as amphipods. They did not see this coming because they weren't expecting any such thing so deep below the surface. Experts have long suspected that Antarctica is hiding an extensive network of rivers, lakes, and estuaries under the ice, but until now, these features have been poorly studied. They didn't know whether this network hosted life, which makes the new finding even more important. It was like being the first to enter a hidden world. Meanwhile, there were more surprises waiting for the scientists. When they sent their camera down into the river, the team was shocked to discover that the cavern looked entirely different from what they had imagined. The researchers had expected that the roof of the chamber would be smooth and flat, but instead what they saw was a roof that was very uneven and featured lots of steep undulations. The cavern was also much wider nearer the roof. One other unexpected discovery they made was that the water column underground split into 4 or 5 distinct layers of water that were flowing in opposite directions. They were forced to change their previous models of the environment. And that is not all the surprises the scientists got from this expedition. The team had actually arrived above the buried river just a couple of days before the record-shattering eruption of the Hunga Tonga Hunga Ha'apai volcano in Tonga. The massive explosion caused pressure waves that rang Earth's atmosphere like a bell, and sensors the researchers had placed on the ice's surface recorded similar pressure waves moving through the underground chamber. Seeing the effect of the Tongan volcano, which erupted thousands of kilometers away, was quite remarkable. It reminded the scientists that our planet is seriously connected. Before we go ahead, let's quickly answer a question that may be interesting to people interested in aviation. Can you fly over Antarctica? Well, the answer is theoretically yes. There are several reasons why you won't want to do that. The first is the weather conditions. As already mentioned, Antarctica has a hostile climate and dangerous weather conditions. It has some of the world's most extreme temperatures, and it takes months of special training to prepare people just to stay on the continent. Of course, you can de-ice a plane that flies through Antarctica to prepare it for the next flight, but few airlines want to do it because it costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. The process is also complicated because you have to account for the crucial electrical heating systems. You also have to worry about visibility issues. Thanks to snowfalls and whiteouts, the continent generally has poor visibility. Mind you, it's very dangerous to fly a plane during snowfall. It is difficult for pilots to maintain constant communication with the ground authorities. Storms are also a factor to consider. You can't even find the necessary infrastructure for flights in the Antarctica. There are no towers, airports, and so forth, so you're more or less flying over the ocean, although the ocean is better because of better visibility and established flight paths. Lastly, another serious concern is magnetic fields. The polar regions produce magnetic fields that interfere with an aircraft's magnetic navigation tools. However, if you could fly over Antarctica, it would take you about 16 hours to go from Australia into Antarctica and to Argentina. The flight portion directly above Antarctica will take a solid 10 hours. Interestingly, planes regularly fly over the North Pole. For instance, flights from Dubai to Los Angeles or New York will take you over the North Pole. The next discovery scientists made in Antarctica can literally solve problems that are out of this world. If you're interested in Mars, a new find in the icy region of Antarctica may help scientists solve a Martian mystery. The discovery involved a mineral known as jarosite. It is a brittle and yellow-brown substance that was first spotted on Mars in 2004 when the NASA Opportunity rover rolled over fine-grained layers of it. The discovery made headlines because jarosite needs water to form, along with iron, sulfate, potassium, and acidic conditions. Since these requirements aren't easily satisfied on Mars, scientists started to look for a way to explain how the red planet came to have the mineral in abundance. Some thought it might have been left behind by the evaporation of small amounts of salty, acidic water. However, the problem with this theory is that the alkaline basalt rocks in Mars's crust would have neutralized the acidic moisture. Another idea was that jarosite was born within massive ice deposits that might have blanketed the planet billions of years ago. As ice sheets grew over time, dust would accumulate within the ice. This may have been transformed into jarosite within slushy pockets between ice crystals. While it looks plausible, the process has never been observed anywhere in the solar system. Meanwhile, back on Earth, you can find jarosite in piles of mining waste that have been exposed to air and rain, but it's not common. So nobody expected to find it in Antarctica, and the scientist that found it wasn't even hunting for it. What he was after were minerals that might indicate ice age cycles within the layers of a 1,620-meter-long ice core, which record thousands of years of Earth's history. But in the core's deepest ice, he came across strange dust particles that he thought might be jarosite. To confirm the mineral's identity, the scientist and his collaborators measured how it absorbed X-rays. They also examined the grains under powerful electron microscopes, confirming it as jarosite. The particles were also noticeably cracked and devoid of sharp edges, indicating that they had formed and eroded from chemical assaults in pockets within the ice. This discovery suggests jarosite forms the same way on Mars. The researcher now wants to use Antarctic cores to investigate whether ancient Martian ice deposits were cauldrons for the formation of other minerals. He claims jarosite shows how glaciers weren't just land-carving machines, but might have contributed to Mars's chemical makeup. Now, since Antarctica is covered by ice, you would expect everywhere to be glistening white, right? But actually, you will find striped icebergs, some with bright colors like candies in Antarctica. Where you find them, they look starkly different from the rest of the landscape. So how do these candy-colored icebergs form? Icebergs themselves are created when large chunks of ice break off from glacier ice shelves and begin to drift on open water. These massive chunks of ice contain pure fresh water because the glaciers are built up from snow falling on the Antarctic continent for millennia. This floating chunk of freshwater ice then interacts with the seawater beneath it, and it is this interaction that causes the kinds of dazzling colors on the striped icebergs. This is what happens. As seawater is drawn deep under the ice shelves by the oceanic currents, it becomes supercooled and freezes to the base of the ice shelf. So because this new ice is formed from seawater that contains organic matter and minerals, it imparts a variety of colors and textures to the iceberg. When the bergs split and are shaped by the wind and waves, the different colored layers then develop striking patterns. Striped icebergs come in a profusion of colors. Visitors have spotted brown, black, yellow, and blue on the ice in Antarctica. The colors actually tell a story because they indicate how the ice formed. When you look at a normal iceberg, it appears white because of the tiny bubbles trapped within, which scatter light in every direction. You get blue stripes when a crevice in the ice sheet fills up with meltwater and freezes so quickly that no bubbles form. Ice that is bubble-free has a blue tint, which is due to the same light phenomenon that tints the sky. The wavelength of blue light causes it to be scattered or spread around much more than the other colors. When an iceberg falls into the sea, a layer of salty seawater can freeze to the underside. If this is rich in algae, it can form a green stripe. Other hues, such as brown, black, and yellow, are caused by sediments picked up as the ice sheet floats downhill towards the sea. Long before our time, the Earth was a wild place, and the Antarctica bears evidence of these extremely rough times. Picture yourself about 9,000 years ago when many of your ancestors wore animal skins instead of the comfortable textiles we have today. If you had gazed up at the sky, you would have been mesmerized by the northern skies full of bright, flickering lights. But don't get too enthralled, because what is happening is super deadly. What you are seeing is a solar storm, and telltale chemical isotopes in ancient ice cores found in Antarctica suggest one of the most massive solar storms ever took place around 7,176 BC. The event described here created distinctive radioactive varieties of beryllium and chlorine in the atmosphere, and these isotopes fell to the ground along with the yearly seasonal snowfall. They then became preserved in layers of ancient ice. Scientists say the cause was almost certainly a solar storm of protons, electrons, and ions, which are known as solar energetic particles, or SEPs. However, galactic gamma-ray bursts and supernovas are capable of leaving a similar chemical signature in the ice. The researchers have now examined ice cores from several drilling projects in Greenland and Antarctica, a difficult and time-consuming task, but they have shared their findings. In ice cores from both regions, they saw evidence of 3 SEP events that are known to have occurred in AD 993 or 994, in AD 774 or 775, and in 660 BC, and are all associated with solar storms. In addition to these, they found evidence of another large SEP event that was never accounted for before now. This occurred in about 7176 BC, or about 9,200 years ago. But what would happen if such a solar storm occurred today? It is going to be a horror show because of the devastating consequences. There would be serious power shortages leading to total blackouts, and the radiation will damage satellites. Air traffic would become too dangerous, and astronauts would become stranded in space and get very sick because of the radiation. Your cellular and mobile network would be gone. Meanwhile, one thing that continues to baffle scientists is the timing of the solar storm. The storm took place during the quiet phase known as the solar minimum of the 11-year solar activity cycle, when solar storms are unlikely, so they are warning that current risk assessments don't properly take this possibility into account. Solar storms are still active and can damage power grids by creating unexpected electric currents that overcome a grid's transformers. One of the worst solar storms in recent memory was the Halloween storms of 2003, which blacked out parts of Europe for several hours and damaged transformers in South Africa. Another intense solar storm in 1989 threw the entire Canadian province of Quebec into darkness. However, power companies have learned of the risks of solar storms in recent years and have hardened their equipment against solar storm damage. The Antarctica might be an unforgivingly cold place, but that has not prevented it from being at the center of conspiracy theories. Due to the discovery of a pyramid-shaped object in Antarctica, some people have been saying they were built by aliens. Before you dismiss these claims, remember that the truth is sometimes stranger than fiction. But what exactly is happening in Antarctica with pyramids? Actually, Antarctica is home to glorious mountain ranges wrapped in glacial ice. If you look at them long enough, you might start to notice a strange geometric pattern. Some of these peaks are oddly, perfectly pyramid-shaped. This particular pyramidial mountain doesn't even have a formal name, but it is one of the many peaks found in the Ellsworth Mountains, discovered by the American aviator Lincoln Ellsworth during a flight in 1935. You can view the mountain yourself on the map using coordinates at 79, 58, 39, 25 S, 81, 57, 32, 21 W. But this southern part of the Ellsworth Mountains is in an area called Heritage Range, which is known for its extraordinary fossils, including those of the Cambrian period trilobites from more than 500 million years ago. This mountain is not tall by planetary standards, but when you believe it's a pyramid constructed by humans or aliens, its height of 4,150 feet is certainly impressive. Putting conspiracy theories aside, how did this unnamed mountain get its pyramid-like shape? We have freeze-thaw erosion to thank for that. Freeze-thaw erosion happens when snow or water fills up cracks within a mountain during the day. When night falls and temperatures drop, the snow freezes and expands, turning into ice. The expanding ice causes the cracks to grow. When this happens countless times, it can lead to the creation of larger cracks that can eventually cause entire rock sections to break off. These forces likely also shaped other pyramidal mountains outside Antarctica, including the Matterhorn in the Alps in Europe. Looking at the pyramidal mountain in Antarctica, you will see that 3 of the 4 sides appear to have eroded at about the same rate. This suggests, since it came out so evenly, that the rock type is fairly uniform. In other words, the nameless mountain is likely all in one rock layer, which is not surprising given that it is not a very big mountain. But what about the 4th side? Well, you can call that one the black sheep of the family. Instead of descending downward like the other ridges, that 4th side extends east, rising toward even higher terrain. The erosion probably wasn't as uniform on that side. What is the last thing you would expect to find in Antarctica? Did you just say pig? If yes, you are wrong. Scientists recently discovered pigs in Antarctica during a marine census of southern Antarctica. Of course, this pig is better known as the sea pig. Sea pigs are actually not pigs, but a type of sea cucumber that looks very much like real pigs with their puffy legs and plump, oval-shaped pinkish bodies, and they are weirdly fascinating. Sea cucumbers are echinoderms, a group of marine animals that includes sea urchins and starfish. They are not only found in Antarctica because they live in all of the world's oceans. In fact, in some areas, they make up more than 95% of the total weight of animals on the deep sea floor. Despite their abundance, most people will never see a sea pig because they live in the coldest and deepest parts of the ocean. Sea pigs, their scientific name is scotoplanes, have 5 to 7 pairs of enlarged tube feet. These walking legs are hydraulically operated appendages that can be inflated and deflated to move around. They have parts attached to their head that look like oversized antennae, but they're actually feet. They may help with getting around and also help to detect the next tasty meal with the help of sensors. Speaking of meals, what does the sea pig eat? You won't like their diet because sea pigs scour mud for scum. Sea pigs are deposit or detrital feeders, meaning they consume bits of decaying plant and animal material found in deep-sea mud. Their mouths have a ring of feeding tentacles that they use to sift through the mud and grab onto food. Sea pigs are attracted to food that has recently fallen from the ocean's surface, like a whale corpse. Sea pigs often gather in large groups of hundreds. Scientists believe there is no other reason for this than the fact that they're all attracted to the same food. So when there is a decaying whale or other large animals, you will find a multitude of sea pigs gathered to feast. However, when they gather, they do something unusual. They all face the same direction. Again, there is no special reason for this but food. All of them will face the direction they sense their next meal will come from, so they will all face the direction they are picking up the scent of a decaying animal from. Sea pigs host several parasites, including small snails and crustaceans that bore holes in their hosts' bodies and feed on them internally. Most organisms spend their life in an upright position, but with Antarctica being a place where strange things are found, are you surprised to find organisms that exist upside down? Sea anemones are supposed to sit on the bottom of the ocean, using their basal disc to rest on a coral reef or sand. However, geologists in Antarctica discovered a mass of sea anemones hanging upside down from the underside of the Ross ice shelf, like a village of wispy ghosts. The scientists were not even searching for a new life when they stumbled on these creatures. They were only doing research about South Pole currents using a remotely operated undersea robot. These new upside-down anemones have been given the name Edward Ciela Andrely, after the program that the researchers were originally on. Anemones are predatory marine animals distantly related to corals and jellyfish. The scientists deployed a robot known as the Submersible, capable of under-ice navigation and imaging into the waters beneath the Ross ice shelf. The robot used a hot water drill to bore an 850-foot hole through the ice shelf before it landed in open water. The scientists were expecting to find waters at this depth, but the camera on the robot revealed an unexpected and astonishing glimpse into this subsurface world, consisting of an unusual and likely unique marine biological community dominated by anemones living inside burrows in the lower surface of the ice shelf. In fact, the camera recorded tens of thousands of these never-before-captured ice anemones. The anemones immediately scattered from the robots, but the scientists were able to trap some of them and bring them to their station. This finding excited the scientists for two reasons. This was the first sea anemone reported to live in ice. It was also the first time scientists had ever discovered anemones in the Edward Ciela genus, also known as burrowing anemones, near the continent. The bone-white, ghostly anemones are a few inches long when fully extended and support 20 to 24 tentacles. Let's hear what you think about Antarctica in the comments section below.